Hi there, we're here to discuss rethinking the guide browsing experience, an issue that we've had and something we've discussed for a long time, probably half a year or so by now, I'm sure. And we've discussed it in the last Design Guide Jam session, so maybe don't need a big intro here. Something that I was wondering if we should do, if we should just create a fig jam and just collaboratively work through everything. Because in our previous discussions, different people have different ideas of what we should do and how we should go about it. So something we talked about yesterday, the idea was that, well, we have this call right now to actually organize this a little bit. So we get all of our sprint session style, we get everything out in a document and just organize it, maybe assign points and prioritize. How does that sound?
Let's do it.
And in this fig jam here, I just put something in here, and it's just for the homepage, some screenshots, because and these are the most common desktop screen sizes. And it's kind of silly that with the most common screen size, all you get to see is the title and one line of text on the page. I mean, it's a nice, obviously I made it, so it's the best illustration ever, but it's not that awesome. It should not take over the whole page.
Yeah, didn't you tell me? I think you told me a long time ago that you preferred to design as the main use case for these kind of smaller sizes, like 1440 by 900.
You mean the headers?
No, I thought I may be remembering wrong. I thought you were trying to tell me that you preferred to design for these kind of smaller screen sizes right here, as the primary size. I may have misunderstood,
I feel like if somebody has a big monitor, 1920 or 1080 or so, do they have full screen browser? I mean, I usually make browser windows a lot smaller. I'm not sure what other people do, but I mean, most websites are just 1200 pixels tall, 14, and they don't even use that size.
Yeah, I got a massive monitor, and I stay at 1920 by 1080. There's no point really stretching it out.
I put two browser windows next to each other, or two different types of windows. But I mean, either way, right? It's just silly. Even at the smaller size, well, you get 3 lines of text. It's still not that much.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a point about how there's all kinds of stuff we can improve. Some of them are very structural. Other ones are maybe we can improve the search function, make that more effective. Like, how often do you guys use search? Are the results very helpful? Do they get you where you want to be? There are all kinds of things we can tweak. So I can just work through that.
I know we've talked about Algora before, because we're using that with Zeus in the docs, but I'm not too sure. It doesn't seem too difficult to integrate into applications that use static site generators like Jekyll and stuff like that. It's an option.
I do use the search frequently, and it's not that good, but I use it because it's the best we have.
What's not so good about it?
It's not good. It's hard to describe. Maybe I've just become too spoiled by services like Google that interpret what you mean, but I feel like the results are too good, where it will pull a word on many different pages. Oh, I think one example is, I'm pretty sure that it doesn't view individual words as a single topic. So if I search for private key, I think it searches for both private and key as individual words, which means you get all results with private key, but also anything just with the word key in it. Or it's if I'm always looking for a specific instance of a specific word or phrase, it's not finding that phrase. It's finding anything that might have one of the words in that phrase in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just tested it out. I think Steven's right. It gives me a lot of results. I type in QR code and there's a bunch of stuff.
It's cloud backup will pull cloud backup, but then it's probably also going to pull up any page that just has the word backup in it. Which, I understand as a you know, as like a front end dev, I get why this is happening, but I feel like in the modern day, people are used to being able to type in like a topic that has 2 or 3 words in it, and that it'll search for that as a topic or an idea. But
Yeah,
I don't know the best way.
It does it. I think the search that we have at the moment is only passing the main markdown file names, and then it's just giving results based on the text words that's in the main markdown file. Whereas when you use Algora, it will also segment things based on subheadings and stuff like that. Like I just linked the BTC pay docs. If you notice, if you type like QR there, it will have like the subheadings within the pages, and it will highlight where the kind of thing is.
Yeah. So our current site search uses a very small JavaScript library. I think it's called Luna or so. So it's just a really small library. So of course it's not going to be the best. But yeah, we can definitely create an issue. And one of the first things we could try is just hook up a service like, I think it's called Algolia or another one. Is that Algolia what you guys talked about?
Yeah, Algolia, yeah.
And just see what before we even implement it, just see what results we get, see if it's better. We could also ask other people in the community to see how they find the search.
That was actually the first time I've actually used a search. Shame to admit it, but I feel like I just know where everything is, so I just kind of like know where to look, so I don't really look into search.
Yeah, I use the search whenever somebody's like, you know, hey, is there anything in the guide that has XYZ? Or like when somebody asks me a specific question, like on the Learning Bitcoin calls, and I'm always like, oh, gee, like, does the guide have this, you know, particular thing that they're asking about? I should say. But,
yeah, the search could definitely do with a usability improvement.
Okay, I just put some categories here in this FigJam file. We can add stuff to them. And I just broke it up. We have different types of pages. Guide landing page, which would be the big introduction. Then where we have all kinds of thoughts on that already, which some of them and I'll put that in the FigJam also for reference. So this is what we talked about for the guide landing page. Huge.
Yeah, I really like that.
Put that up here.
Approach.
So okay, let's just do it this way. Well,
if you had
so we have a visual reference. Move content further up the page is one change. Another change is visually highlight the most important sections, which we decided now were the reference designs, right? That's not initially with the guide, we had the idea of case studies. Our case studies ended up kind of being one pagers. And now it seems like the case studies, we're renaming them into reference designs. And we decided, well, people just really want to see those visual mock-ups and those instructions on what the UX should look like and these very practical things, maybe more so than some of the underlying explanations. That seems to have crystallized over time. So that would become more priority on the homepage. Did I summarize that okay? Or do you agree with that or not?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I agree with that. I'm not sure if that was like something decided on yesterday's call or not, but I agree with that. Yeah, I think
we talked about it a couple weeks ago, like maybe the last jam session or the one before that.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I like the idea of promoting the reference designs.
Yeah, I think the really big thing is that so we had this daily case studies. And I think that's one of your big points. In case studies, we had the daily spending case study, Stephen, which you redid recently, that page, which really the onboarding and the payment section are exactly about that same type of product. So that it really goes together, but it's currently split up in weird ways. So we have, I don't know, 15 pages or so that are really all this reference design for a daily spending wallet. So that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like it should be a really big thing. It is like a quarter of all the pages in the guide are about this daily spending reference design now.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, think of it as kind of like the principle, or sorry, the daily spending reference design is kind of just like the overview of the topic as a whole, and then the other pages are like how you drill down into that topic. So the whole reference design, it'll show you an overview of why of what a finished daily spending wallet might look like. It's not going to explain to you the principles behind why decisions were made in specific user flows, but it'll give you a glimpse of the finished product.
I reckon we could include what you just said inside the reference. Like, I reckon you could have like a chapter called daily spending, and then within that chapter, at the very end, just have a section called I'd call it a reference design, and then that brings that whole chapter together in like what you just said. It just kind of lays it all out without going into all the detail which the previous sections of the chapter would.
Mm.
Can you explain that a bit further?
So I kind of had it in my
differently?
little thing here.
Mhm.
Sorry, just throwing that around. But so you'd have like your daily spending chapter here. You have your first use. I kind of removed that main onboarding heading page. I don't think it's really that necessary. It kind of makes sense that it's in chronological order. It starts with like the onboarding stuff. It just goes in order. So you go through all this content, and then you have a reference design for the daily spending chapter at the end, which is essentially what the case study for the daily spending is now. And it just brings it all together. And it's just like ideally like a prototype that says just shows what how application would work without going, and all the pages previously kind of go into all the detail, obviously. And then that reference design would just kind of cover bringing it all together, if that makes sense.
So why would you put it at the end? So the daily spending wallet, this section would also have a landing page where it would say, okay, we're talking about this chapter, the section will deal with this particular type of product. It's for daily spending, it's Lightning first, it's mobile, and all the pages in here will describe UX solutions, considerations, all of this stuff specific to this type of product. So it sets the frame for everything else. And then you would go straight into, instead of starting with this overview, the reference design is then, it's like one level down. It's a bit of an overview that shows kind of the whole thing. You would put that at the end. You would go step by step through the different user flows within that.
Well, maybe from
tie it together.
In the menu, I would, but in the overview landing page you've got over to the right over here, would probably bring it up a bit further, as priority. But in the kind of skeleton tree kind of structure on the side, I probably would put it at the end, because I guess I kind of see if you're navigating the site using the tree structure in the left-hand menu, I feel like you might be reading things like chronologically. So you kind of want to read through all the content, see how the different pieces work, and you kind of get to the end and you've got this reference design brings all that together. But yeah, definitely in the overview page, you'd probably prioritize that a little bit more and maybe bring it further to the front somewhere, however it's presented, because maybe people just want to jump in and have a quick look and look how the application works, and then if they have questions on certain parts of it, they could then go look at the in-depth. But I guess you could put it at the start as well in the structure on the left. I don't think that's either option seems pretty good to me.
This reminds me of many different web development coding tutorials you'll find on the internet, and it'll be like a blog post that somebody has created, or some tutorial page, and it will start at the top. It's like, hey, I'm going to give you a demo here that shows you how to develop a simple to-do list application that looks really nice. And at the top, they'll have, maybe there's like a little prototype at the top you can click around, or maybe it's just a picture. And then it's like, okay, step 1, and then here's the first 5 lines of code you write, and then step 2, and then here's the next 10 lines of code you write. So, and then at the very end, they're like, okay, tying it all together, here's the entire file, all 3 files of code that you should have written by now if you've followed these steps, and then you have the completed product. It reminds me of that kind of architecture a little bit, which I like, just the idea that we're going to show you what you're going to produce, and then we're going to step by step show you how to produce it, and then we're going to show you what you should have at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I was getting at with it.
That's a good idea. Let's put that in, where do we put that? Content structure bucket, so we can organize this. So that would be reference design section structure. Stevens of a coding tutorial structure example. An overview, then step by step guidance, and tie it all together with the full solution. All right, and then Bosch, I think you had a point about how on the guide landing page can highlight things differently than in the sidebar nav. And that's a good point. The sidebar nav is a very logical structure, while in the content, when we write copy, when we editorialize it, it can be pretty different based on whoever the user is. I was with the Bitcoin UI kit, the website now has this page where you can click through all the different screens. I was just investigating briefly if I could expand my Figma export plugin to also capture prototyping hit areas, so I could easily export prototype flows and then have a small script on the website that then would allow you to automatically then create a JavaScript-based prototype. So basically very easily export prototypes and have them on the website without Figma's overhead and tracking capabilities.
Isn't there other tools as well that you can import prototypes into from Figma, and then like they render them in different ways and stuff that we could potentially look into as well?
Yeah, I mean, ideally we just don't want to have any third-party tracking if it's a small self-contained JavaScript library. And the other thing you probably want is to have one-click export. So you put together your prototype in Figma, and we could include a link to the Figma prototype, but when it's rendered in the guide, it uses a small self-contained JavaScript library.
Yeah, it'd be cool if you could have it similar to how progressive web apps work, and the prototype just renders the screens that the person's using rather than having to store the whole prototype kind of logic, which would be quite big. Just a point on before the content structure, I had my mic muted, I didn't realize. Because I think that's where we've kind of maybe not been, where we've kind of seen different things. Like with this overview page, it doesn't follow that kind of linear logical structure, whereas the menu kind of does. I think I've just been focusing on the menu, and I think you've been focusing more on the overview page. But I think that's kind of, I guess, where our differences in views are kind of set. Because I've only been really focusing on this kind of, it's the skeleton structure of the site. That's what I use to navigate the thing mostly, and that's where I've been focused. And your kind of overview page makes a whole lot of sense to me. So I didn't really contribute a lot there, but I think the overview page definitely may need some more insight, and maybe get some other users to play around with it and see what's best, because that's going to be definitely more targeted towards particular users and use cases and what content's relevant to people. Whereas the skeleton side tree structure is just a logical linear order that people can, read the guide from start to finish if they want. It's not really targeted, I guess, it as a particular demographic.
There's, I mean, we've been dealing with the guide so intimately, and there are probably only 10 people in the world or so that know it as well as we do at this point. So we're totally the power users. But it actually surprises me how we don't use the search very much. Maybe because we know it so well now that we it's intuitive. We know where certain things are supposed to be.
We should definitely ask people if they use the search, because like particularly with a lot of Steve's issues that he brings up with the guide, like he seems to find those just by typing in a certain keyword, and then he realizes there's nothing in the guide about it. And I could imagine product devs doing that quite a bit. Like say if they're working on a product and they get told like, go look at this particular technical thing. Like I'd imagine one of the first things they would do is go to the guide and type in what does reserve channel mean, or reserve channel, and then try to find content related to that.
I mean, with good documentation, you really start to think of as a tool. Like, for example, like if you start like coding in Tailwind CSS for front-end dev, like you very quickly begin to rely on their documentation when they're coding. And it's like, if you want to bring up the search window in any of their docs, you press Command K, and it comes up with like a search thing, and you can search for whatever specific thing you're looking for, and the results are like super good. So it's like the documentation page isn't just like a boring reference library. It's this like tool that you can use very quickly that helps you do your job quickly. Slightly different situation than the kind of content we have, but related topic.
The best coding documentation that I've ever found was in Xcode, where you just click some function name or some, I don't know, variable or whatever, and in the sidebar on the right, it pulls up all the relevant explanation and documentation for you. So you just click stuff and it's right there.
Oh yeah, the inline documentation. Yeah, that stuff is great.
I don't think that's possible for Figma. Just click an input field with Bitcoin value in it, and it pulls up guide documentation.
With this overview page here, Christoph, would you still have the tree structure on the left-hand side, or would you just have this as like an overview landing page, purely like this?
I would not have it. We don't have it right now, and I would not introduce it. I think it's the point of this page to provide a good overview.
If you click on the guide now, it does have it on my screen.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. Maybe my screen's big and it doesn't hide it.
Ah, true.
Let's open DevTools.
Yep, it's there.
Yeah, so it depends on the breakpoint you're at. Yeah, I mean, for large screen sizes, it seems like it would make sense if it was there.
You could have it also collapsible just to make the UI look a little cleaner. Like just have something. So like optionally, like you scan through this and you don't really see something you find that's relevant, you could expand out the menu and go through it like linearly.
Yeah. So while we're at this, there's a search function at the top, which I don't think I'm not sure if we need or want there. It's an option.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And then at the bottom, there's the other big change here. Actually, if we're in reference designs, something we should think about is how we can future-proof this. So if Patricia at some point wants to add a merchant section in here, or somebody wants to, I don't know, have an ATM section or something else, then would we be able to accommodate this stuff?
Yeah, I reckon you'd have like daily spending, and you could just list the other products like you do the daily spending here.
Seems reasonable.
So that's completely new things. So one of the things with progressive security and shared accounts here So daily spending is a massive case study with 15 or so subpages. Savings is a multi-sig Bitcoin network only wallet. There could be various subpages about how to do multi-sig setups, and that could expand in itself. Progressive security is a little bit more contained. I'm not sure if we'll ever end up, and similar with shared account, I'm not sure if we'll ever end up with a lot of subpages there. Maybe just one or two, because those are more progressive security is about, okay, you start with a simple spending wallet, and then once you have XYZ Bitcoin, and you may want to update to a multi-sig, or you want to downgrade. It's about this flexible security model that adjusts to your needs and always keeps you in control. So that's not going to be super complex ever, probably. More than 1 or 2 pages, I think. So that it's a fairly small thing. Is that still a reference design? Is that more of a case study? What do you think?
I'd say it's more, the progressive security is more of a case study. Shared accounts more of a case study. I think savings, like long-term goal, definitely could expand that into like its whole, like a chapter as big as daily spending, and go into like a savings-based Bitcoin wallet that uses on-chain multi-sig.
Didn't we say we wanted to make them use cases instead? Instead of case study, it's like, because it's not like a analysis of a real situation that happened. It's like, well, this would be a use case for this type of design.
I'm not sure if I would call it a use case.
Oh, I thought this was on like a previous design jam call. We talked about that.
There was, we discussed case studies and reference designs. Those are the two, unless I.
It might be. I have to pull it up. It was an issue. It was like another candidate word or something like that.
Okay.
Or use case was one of the candidates. It may have been in a GitHub issue. But yeah, like if you don't think like progressive security is ever going to have like its own full page with a full prototype, but you don't think it's a reference design, then maybe that could be a use case. Somebody flagged the issue that a case study makes it sound like it's a real world thing, like a real wallet that we're like studying how it works and how the design was done.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wrote some notes on the progressive security stuff a while back. Like, I think a lot of the content's like good. I really like the whole concept of it, but I feel like you could get a lot of that content and like kind of integrate it throughout the daily spending wallet. Like, because daily spending wallet's like your use case, like daily spending. Progressive security is something you can do with a daily spending wallet. So a lot of that content could be moved. Like you could remove it from having its own section and move it within daily spending. And as well as we ever get like a savings chapter, like there'll obviously be content in there around progressive security. It's more of like a thing you do with a wallet. Like,
it depends. I think progressive security and shared accounts, they're more conceptual. Daily spending is a very specific use. Progressive security could be, or shared accounts could be, you and your partner. It could be between business partners. It could be between parents and a child. There are different use cases within that idea. So you could have the shared accounts could actually cover, let's say, 3 different use cases and scenarios within one single page. So it describes maybe the general idea at the top, and then it could have 3 different, very, very different things. So, and I think progressive security could potentially be similar, where you don't want it to be too tied to just daily spending. You could also, you could also turn one of them into a desktop application, for example. Like you do progressive security with, desktop apps or hardware wallets. So I don't know. But by having it a separate thing, my point being just it allows for more flexibility. But it just depends on what we want to do right now. I don't think anybody's working on that.
Yeah.
So maybe we just leave it as is. We just say, okay, these are reference designs, because the Stevens point was it's not a real product. And then we introduce case studies, which are then analyses of more real products.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like the case study idea of doing the stuff from like the wallet improvement project. So we're like do studies on particular wallets that exist and apply the guide and talk about how we apply the guide and stuff like that.
I was just messing around trying to figure out if, we could expand that page a little bit, for the time being, you could easily put in a additional fourth item next to shared accounts and under progressive security. But, if we do get more and more content in the future, we could start breaking them down into subcategories. Like, here's all your merchant reference design, your ATM reference design, or maybe we just have a second category here that's just beyond wallets or things that are not strictly wallets, jam them under there. So yeah, I think the page could be, future proof.
That'll be a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Just a quick note on that search menu as well. Like, it should probably only search within the guide, not the projects and contribute page, if it's going to be within like the main body of the guide.
Yep. That makes sense. So then, so this markup here does not include the case studies section, for which we don't have any content, so maybe we don't even worry about that right now.
Yeah, or can we just get to that later when we have some content for it?
Anything we need to track here?
Like, this all makes a lot of sense to me. Like, I reckon it's really good.
Does reference designs needs its own landing page? Describe, here's what reference designs are, this and that. Probably not.
I don't think so. I don't know if that title really adds a lot. Like, if you come on here, you see daily spending. Like, I think it's kind of pretty intuitive that's like just goes into that type of product. Like, the title reference designs there doesn't really like.
It just introduces a common term for what these things are, and if we have, let's say, case studies below, then it's helpful to see, okay, this is that type of content, this is that other type of content. I think that's the primary benefit I would see from it. Okay, the other addition here was the how it works, which is something we've talked about.
Yep, definitely.
We also, initially, the idea was to call it technologies, which I think at the Apple Human Interface Guidelines at the bottom has a thing called technologies, where if you want to look at, CarPlay or some specific tech, provides you guidance. And then
how it works seems a bit more intuitive, I think.
Did you cover that in your?
Yeah, it's in that structure. So like how it works. I put the private key management chapter in there, the liquidity page, transactions overview, just like all the real like referencey, like more technical that aren't related to the reference design, unit symbols, payment request formats page. Eventually maybe get a BIPs, blips, and bolts page. I was working on that a while back. I have some stuff done, but eventually get there. It's not super big priority. I did a resource page as a section as well, like because I don't know. I just feel like the research. I think there's community resources, which is like links to like UIKit and stuff like that, and there's that's the research page that was originally in designing Bitcoin products. So that's just like the list of.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would put units and symbols more in the designing Bitcoin products section. But okay, hold on. Let's make sure we track this stuff. Is it okay if I move your screenshot to that other section?
You can edit this.
Content structure.
You can move things around. Yeah, we can go through it from top to bottom if you want. There's quite a few little things that I've kind of tweaked and changed around. But...
Okay. I'll move it over to content structure here, so we have. We can also put the. So one thing was create a technologies. How it works section.
You turn these into issues.
This includes pages that are less about user-facing experience, but more so for designers to understand how things work underneath, which is needed often to inform design decisions. Okay, not the best description, but it'll work.
So on this structure, the top bit, like the overview, that would link to the page that you're proposing over here with all the things laid out. So it'd be good to have like a button on that tree structure that could navigate back to that if the user wanted to go back to that landing, that guide landing page.
Yeah, we have it called introduction right now, which I feel like, but I think I don't see a reason why to change it to overview. It's kind of the same thing. Could be more of a change for the sake of changing it to me. But if you feel strongly about it.
No, I don't feel strongly about that. I just thought overview just made a little bit more sense, but both of them are pretty applicable.
Mm.
Because introduction kind of more, I think, sounds like it just kind of introduces the guide, what it's about, whereas overviews kind of overview of the whole guide, which is more what that page is, in my opinion.
It's becoming, for sure. Yeah. Okay. Eventually introduce a case studies section for use analysis of IRL projects. For example,
that structure I just pasted there on the left is the current
sprints.
Tree.
Okay, perfect. And then you're suggesting create a new resources section.
Yeah, you could highlight that in the homepage somewhere here, like maybe above the glossary. So you have glossary contribute, and have a section there saying resources. They're a little bit different, and we could add lots of stuff in there, like I don't know, even articles and stuff like that. Like I don't know, it could be lots of things you could put in there.
So we currently have user resources pages. We also have design resources, which are just all the different. Can I not resize this thing?
Yeah. Yeah, that's only two I had in there at the moment.
Design resources, and there's one page that I have a document for in an issue, which is a take-home challenges, take-home design challenges.
Yeah, you can check that in there as well.
Okay, and probably more eventually. Glossary, I don't think we have any big changes to that one, right?
Nah, it's pretty much the same. I didn't even expand it in this menu because it's pretty straightforward. Same as contribute to the guide. I don't reckon that was really needed any really restructuring. It's pretty straightforward.
So I have here on the left, I have a thing called Sidebar Nav, and I kept it in here to describe more of the actual design execution of the sidebar. Because one thing that bothers me is when we just have like 15,000 arrows everywhere, and it's kind of annoying visually, and it's to dig deep, you need to click on 3 different arrows. So one question I had for you was, so it's helpful, like here in the daily spending wallet, when things are, there's a little bit of a deeper hierarchy. But my question is, for those subpages, do we need them to be expandable? So let's say it says here funding. Does that need does that have to be expandable? Can we just always show those subpages and they're just indented a little bit?
Yeah, I don't think we need the arrow. I think that's pretty reasonable. I wouldn't mind combining, doing a funding page, like redoing it a little bit and having it just as one page. I'm going to come back to that.
Yeah. I mean, I almost feel like you could just expand the top category. Oh yeah, just like that. Yeah, like yeah. If I expand pay, if I want to get to the payments request formats on the current side, I have to open up payments, open up requesting Bitcoin, and then go to payments. So ideally, I just only open up payments.
Yeah. So I put in an example here also that shows where it's just visually indented.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I agree. The arrow is kind of just an unnecessary visual weight.
And in this one here, we wouldn't need units and symbols. Can I erase stuff here?
Yeah, that could go to designing Bitcoin
this
products
one,
or
this one could
how it
go,
works.
this one could go. So you currently have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 subpages. It's quite a bit. But yeah, it's huge. And I don't think we'll add more in the future. Seems pretty complete at this point.
Yeah, hopefully combine funding into one page.
Okay, so I'm just going to group this here and throw it over there. So then remove expand options from sub orders. Always show pages with slight indentation. Otherwise, do we want to keep it as is? So I'll pull up but here in my background, I'll just pull up the Apple Human Interface Guidelines. So here you have these sections. I say, okay, iOS, that's what I'm dealing with. So I'm going to focus on that. And the way that they have it here on the left is, so these main sections, with our navigation, you can click on the arrow to expand, or you click the text and it's always a dedicated page, which I think makes sense. But let's say you see iOS here at the top, and then there's macOS, tvOS, watchOS, technologies below. Now, if I click let's say tvOS, that becomes the top section here. And then iOS is further down. So they always put whatever section you're in at the top, basically, which is an option. I'm not sure we need that. It just made me think about how we can also break with what we have right now, which is a very simple tree structure that's always the same.
I would definitely take a note on that and put that as something we should look into once we kind of figure out like all this kind of stuff we're looking at now. But that could be something like a nice to have.
It'd be pretty slick looking.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mocked this up somewhere. So here, this would be my background again here. This would be, let's say we highlight the reference designs in a dedicated section, which then matches what the overview or introduction page shows, the same type of structure. And then if I shouldn't curse here on these calls. Here, this is what it would look like then. So if I'm in reference designs, the reference designs goes to the top of the sidebar nav, and then all the other sections would be below. So that would be a bit of an equivalent. Just an idea.
Just another idea from that. I quite like on that human interface guidelines, like they had the two menu options at the top. So they got the top one, which is for the whole site, the developer site. And when you scroll down, that human interface guidelines one, stickies, and there's like an overview, resources, videos, what's new button. I quite like that. I think that could be handy to have as well, something like that.
Another top level sub nav.
Yeah. Especially if you're on like a very big page and you're like deep scrolling down, and I don't know, like in some situation you just want to like quickly click and go back to the overview or go to some other prominent page.
How do they handle that on mobile?
Let's find out.
So there's no sidebar on mobile.
They handle it the same way, basically. There's two headers on mobile, but as you scroll down the page, it one of the top header disappears, and then the other one becomes sticky. And then the sidebar is fused into the header on mobile. Look at these rebels. They don't even have a hamburger icon. They're just using a little arrow. Think differently.
Yeah, they have the hamburger for the main site developer navigation, and then the little arrow for the human interface guidelines sub nav. Yeah, it's just so much. I just don't like it when navigation feels, when there's like half the screen is just navigation, and it gets so complicated.
Yeah, I get you.
Ideally, we can avoid it. But who knows? Maybe we do need it. Okay, anything else from our discussion we should document here?
I did some shuffling of the content in the getting started and designing Bitcoin products. Like I moved the software overview, hardware overview to designing Bitcoin products and changed the name of them to software products and hardware products. Thought it was more descriptive of what the page actually is about. Like software overview sounds a little bit vague. Like if I just read that title, I'm not exactly sure what that page is. But the page itself is just a list of software products, Bitcoin software products. So what software products, just a quick name change made a bit more sense. And as well, I put them in designing Bitcoin products because I felt like they were more like they are. It's pretty much essentially Bitcoin products. I thought it made more sense to be in that section and getting started.
Yeah, I think from just looking at the title, I think that makes sense. The way I think about getting started is for a designer new to Bitcoin, and they just want to see, well, what are the different types of software that are out there? Somebody might be familiar with what an exchange is or what a wallet is, but they don't know all the other types. So whereas designing Bitcoin products, I assume the person's already familiar with Bitcoin, and it's more about maybe the design process and practical guidance, like units and symbols. So for me, software products, hardware products, they're more for the type of. Why is there a hand on my cursor?
I run into the same problem all the time.
I guess when you move your cursor a lot, the hand shows up for some reason.
I wonder if they want to let you know that you're moving your cursor too much and you might be irritating people or something in the group environment. I don't know. So it turns it into, that might be it. That might be it. So that you don't get the jerky cursor movement. It's a more smooth hand movement.
A quick way to shortcut to raise your hand. You want to say something?
That could be it too.
Oh, you can high five.
What?
It's kind of cool.
It just makes everybody super annoying. Okay, quick question, quick sidebar. What do you think of all of this stuff? That I have here a box full of stickers where I can put, VIP. Okay, where did that one go? Where I can just put VIP and we can high five. Why does this not even show? I feel like it's just more distracting than anything. Why would you want to do that?
Well, we use the stickers. It depends on the context, but we actually ended up relying on some of the stickers in the the Blix design sprints, because I'm not sure if you've looked into those files much, but we have got page after page of sticky notes and all that kind of stuff. And so like we were using the stickers as a way to vote on ideas. And primarily we were just using the sticker that has like our face on it. I don't know about all this other crap. But I could see the need for like the thumbs up and the heart emoji and all that. I don't know about the other zany stickers, but
Yeah, I don't
guess-
understand why there's a monster manual sticker collection here. What does that have to do with anything? Yeah, I understand your point. There are some that are very useful, thumbs up, putting, some of this very useful stuff, but then the rest just seems like. I always also thought that when Figma introduced FigJam, I was looking at the screen and there were all these cursor moving around, people putting up stickers. I thought, like, is everybody just kind of going nuts there? What are they doing? Actually working on anything? Just, maybe in a video game now or something?
Yeah, it's a bit more fun.
Don't you understand, Christoph? We're in the metaverse now.
I mean, if that's how you get stuff done, I guess that's good.
We're going to be so much more productive in the metaverse, guys.
I like the meatverse better.
Same.
Yeah, so bringing back a Second Life from the dead.
So what would be like, I know we've got a bunch of green cards here that have, specific problems and to solve and specific ideas. How would we want to think about moving forward with implementing some of this?
I have one more question before getting to your point, if I may. Bosch had about 30, 40 individual suggestions around moving pages, like software products. Let's rename it and move it. So each one has an individual rationale that we may or may not all agree or not agree with. So should we list out those individually, which we can do here in individual cards and then put stickers on them? Or I don't know. Actually, I don't know what other way we should go about this.
Yeah,
we have to list it out somehow and go through it.
That's it there on the left.
Yeah,
but that's a bit outdated. So that's not like I've changed it quite a lot. This one over on the far right is the most up to date one, but some of them are just like name changes. Like they're not that big things, just little things. As I was just kind of going over it all and just being like, oh, this will make more sense. Like for example, like the designing Bitcoin products, like instead of just calling it user research, I call it conducting research. Like it just seems more like, I don't know, like that's kind of to me what that page is more like it's how to conduct research rather than user research. But it's a minor thing. Like it's not something that I would a hill that I'll die on. But I was just like, oh, it makes a bit more sense. Like if you're navigating and you wanted to know what the page was just by reading the page title. Yeah, a lot of them are just minor things, and obviously like the two mentioned before. Yeah, we go through with stickers if you want. We'll just put stickers next to my suggestions.
That seems like a efficient way of doing it.
So Stephen, here now we can use those awesome stickers instead of drawing.
We start from the top.
Let's start at the top. So we need a check and we need kind of a cross or a yes or a no. Okay, here's the equivalent.
Or a thumbs up, thumbs down.
Okay, cool. Let's use
three of us. Yeah. The Human Interface Guidelines uses the overview kind of terminology as well. But I like that, but it's not something that I think is super contentious.
Here's a down sticker for anyone to copy.
Well, I'm just using the sticker, the stock sticker.
There is a stock sticker?
Yeah, you click on the stamp.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's my deal, is that I'm using the stamp menu more. I find the stamp menu to be really useful. The sticker, I guess I haven't messed around with much. I guess they're different things.
You're not fully expressing yourself.
I don't feel bad for voting this stuff down, by the way. Like all this was done in like a couple of hours. I just was kind of looking at it from a big picture.
Should we also have something I don't care or no opinion?
Yeah, just like could put I don't know, one of the stickers.
Put the little eye, the eye stamp or whatever. There we go.
Oh, I don't know. How do you do it as a stamp?
What? Why is it like? Oh, that's weird. It's like, oh god. Man, people are going to be watching this call later on Bitcoin TV and be like, what's going on with these guys? All right.
So the top one's just a name change, so like that's pretty straightforward. But yeah, it's copying
so
an
neutral
interface.
It's a yellow light. It's neutral.
Yeah, use that as a neutral.
I was just trying to pick some super random sticker like a banana or something. Okay, yellow is neutral. Okay, I am. Is there a way to lock? Okay, I have to lock that layer. I think it's pretty arbitrary to rename it to introduction. So I don't know. I don't care particularly for it. So I'm just going to put that there. Open design. Yes, I give that a.
Yeah, I feel like that was like if you're new, like particularly what you said about if you're new, you'd probably want to know about open design. It's like if you're familiar with Bitcoin, you're probably a bit more familiar with open source. So I feel that maybe.
Yeah, I just shared that page this morning with somebody who's new to the community and was asking like, how does this work at all? And I feel like this is a pretty good intro page.
That was just a minor one as well.
Principles.
Just so you know that they're like design principles, like not so much just general principles. Like I don't know, just like more descriptive titles. I like those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think when it's in the design in Bitcoin products, you're in a section called designing Bitcoin products. You don't necessarily need to call it design principles. But if we move it to a different section, design principles, maybe it makes more sense. So. Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, it's less of an general introduction. I feel like, if let's say you look at these principles page and it talks about interoperability, some things get pretty deep. Support as many relevant bips and bolts. I don't know. I could go either way on the moving part.
Yeah, it's not one I'm super like. I guess I'll just check that there for now. Like, come back to that. Not a huge priority.
I mean, I personally feel like it could go either way, but maybe this is something where we just need more opinions. Right?
So let's see. Moving the design principles from designing Bitcoin products to getting started. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
Because I feel like if you're familiar with Bitcoin, because I go on based on what Christoph said, like our designing Bitcoin products. If you're familiar with Bitcoin, you're probably familiar with like those kind of principles because they are, although they are design principles and what we kind of do, they're kind of general Bitcoin principles about like how Bitcoin works, like interoperability, decentralization, non-custodial kind of stuff. Whereas like getting started, like you might not be familiar with those kind of like principles of Bitcoin. That's kind of where my head was at with that.
It might be worth it. I mean, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, it feels like it's almost a good follow-up page to open design. So open design is just more in general about how this open design, open collaboration, values, how to get started. And the design principles is more about, okay, now you're in Bitcoin. Here are principles.
Yeah.
So
it might be better be after open design.
Sequence there.
I could see moving it into the getting started category for the reason that I think it's an important idea, especially that just the idea that like this is something that a traditional fintech app doesn't have to worry about. It doesn't necessarily have to follow these principles, but a good self-custodial Bitcoin app does need to be a principled product. And I know just come from my own user behavior, if I'm like let's say I'm trying to learn a new development framework or a library, so I go to their documentation, and probably one of the things I'm gonna click on very soon in my journey on that site is go to the getting started introduction, like whatever. There's usually some kind of intro tutorial in those docs that's like 4 or 5 pages, that's like kind of easy, up to speed on how to use this development library. Well, I rarely ever get into the later, or I rarely ever read into the later chapters of the documentation. I start with the getting started section. I probably read and follow everything in those 4 pages. And then as for the rest of the documentation, I'm just going in and sampling stuff as I need it. So assuming that other people follow a similar journey as to what I do, it makes sense to put something important like the principles closer up to the top of where you begin.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I changed mine to a farm from an orange circle, so.
Yeah, convinced me. Okay, then what's some other change? I guess my question then is why design for Bitcoin then also feels more like an introductory thing. Like, why would you even want to do this in the first place? If you're in designing Bitcoin products, you already decided, well, I am designing a Bitcoin product. And why design for Bitcoin is more, why even care about this in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I almost kind of think about some of this stuff as like, yeah, maybe that could go into getting started as well. Because we had to think about this. Like, I almost think of the designing Bitcoin product. Take a second.
Okay.
Now we're back. So I kind of feel like we may have, we might want to think about the designing Bitcoin products as being kind of similar to the how it works section. So it's like how it works or technologies, whatever we call it. And then it's like, it's kind of going into just like the technology of it. It's not necessarily like telling you how to design. It's just trying to help you understand the technology. So you understand like, you understand that technology a little bit deeper and can make, more informed design decisions. And some of the content in the designing Bitcoin products seems similar to that. I'm not saying it should go in that same chapter, but it's like a similar kind of idea. Like conducting research is, this isn't like an introductory level topic. It's not a getting started level topic, and it's more of a broad topic. Like research might be something that you do at the beginning of building your product. It might be something you continuously do as you're building, shipping, and refining a product, so you can make sure seeing how people respond to it, how people use it, all that kind of thing. So it's like an ongoing thing. And interoperability, again, it's not just like something you can get started and do. It's like a more broad topic to consider all the moving parts to. So, I mean, I almost think of the designing Bitcoin products as just being kind of like a technologies chapter, but more of like a design considerations chapter or something. So yeah, I mean, I would be fine with moving why design for Bitcoin up into the getting started section. That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
So more of a how-to section.
What is he? Yeah. Let's see.
So I try to in that document I shared, in the use cases document I shared, I tried to put this at the very end, and I'll try and see if I can copy paste that in here. Guys. Yeah, so that's from a Google Doc. I tried to put in descriptions for the purpose of each section, specifically for more easily organizing pages. And I think this might be helpful here at this point. So getting started is, I don't know anything. I'm probably a designer. I don't know much about Bitcoin. I just want to know the basics. So what's so special about Bitcoin? Why design for it? How does this open design thing work? Visual language, kind of the general brand idea, visual expression of Bitcoin, basic tech stuff. And then designing Bitcoin products is, I've made the decision now, I'm in it. And I want to, but there's still generally useful information, like how to conduct research in Bitcoin. What is a typical usage life cycle? Like I don't care about the usage life cycle if I'm not even convinced that I'm going to do this, if I just want to figure out what this Bitcoin thing is about, how design works in Bitcoin. That's how I look at them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
So thinking about, I love the distinction here, because these are, when I tell people about the guide, these are always like the two target audiences that I always say, for designers new to Bitcoin, or, developers new to design. So to me, these intended target audiences are not apparent from the titles. Getting started, we might want to, if we want to focus it like that, it seems, when we talk about it like this, it doesn't seem like a linear progression of content. It seems like a fork in the path. So if you're this, then you absorb this section, and if you're this, then you can skip that and go to that. So I was think maybe we want the title of Getting Started to be something more apparent.
Yeah. Which, labels are always really hard. But really, this is kind of the copy almost that should be on the guide intro page.
Yeah. I'll have to think about that some more. But yeah, I agree that it isn't really like the titles may not be super clear as to who they're for, but they're pretty good. Maybe that's because I'm just so familiar with the content.
Yeah, like Getting Started makes it just seem like, I feel like when you say Getting Started, it almost seems like anybody should read that page, or like everybody needs to go through that section. It sounds like the very, very basic, the kind of page, but
which is it is.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you know? Yeah.
Well, no, I guess it just depends on if we think that if we're really framing it as it is a very basic page. It's just like, I'm mainly just commenting that if we think that the target audience for this page is specifically designers new to Bitcoin, that almost implies to me that a large portion of the audience can basically just skip the section entirely.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, this is what we send people who join the community to. So one is maybe the general site contribute page, but also this one. And after they read through it, they're like, oh yeah, I think I kind of get what Bitcoin's about and how design works in this space, without having maybe the detailed idea about, all the steps of the usage life cycle or sweeping wallets and stuff like that, but more general.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I like the descriptions. I think that make a lot of sense on the overview page.
So maybe that could be our task. Could be to rewrite the copy of the intro page to more closely reflect this.
Why are we going to get rid of this intro page and do the overview?
Oh no, I mean, yeah. If we're going to redesign it, the new copy should then also capture these ideas here. Well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'd be important to do this restructure stuff here in the tree, and then do the overview page, because I think how this is laid out it may influence the overview page a little bit.
Okay, all right. You already added stickers to all the other ones. I think you're just tired of.
It was mostly you going through it, Christoph. I guess that's a renaming one. Rename user research, conducting research. Just thought it was more descriptive as to what the page kind of content was or is.
So we have also have getting to know your users, which is also about user research. I think this one, the user research page that we have right now, is more about how user research is different in Bitcoin. So if I'm, let's say, a user researcher, I've worked for agencies, I've worked for fintech, I've worked for some social media company or whatever, I have certain ideas. And then here, this is about user research specific to Bitcoin. Like what's
think we should
special about it?
work on the copy a little bit in that section then, because when I read it, it's more just, it seems more just general research. Like he didn't. I think there could be a little bit more like Bitcoin context added to throughout. Like if you read the open paragraph or open a few sentences on the user research page, I don't think it even says Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's true. There's in the first paragraph or the first chapter, section, whatever, is about why it's important to make that case for anyone. And then it goes into user research is different with Bitcoin. And then all those subpoints, 2/3 of the page are about why it's different.
Yeah, so I almost think about the user research page as being a how to think about research, whereas then the next page, the subpage, is like a repository of collected research. And it might make sense to separate those things out, like, because that's one thing people have just been asking about so much lately, I feel like. So just having a really clear, apparent way in the navigation to find the repository of existing user research, but then the kind of like how to think about research within the context of Bitcoin is something that could go under DBP, Designing Bitcoin Products.
Yeah, that page was the main reason I wanted to have that resources page, because I think that page is pretty important, and it's kind of just hidden as a sub page on conducting research and didn't seem to like not have that much importance there. So having like a resources chapter, I think it would be easier to find that and gives it a little bit more emphasis.
I mean, the alternative would be to create a new top level entry for user research.
Do we have enough though, really?
I don't know. I mean, it's something, I feel like it's something that's pretty underserved overall. But I mean, we've had a year and a half now of people doing stuff, and there's been comparatively, there's been fairly little material been put together around research. So it's really just up to people to step up and make things.
Yeah, well, maybe, promoting it. I mean, the thing about it is, I feel like with a lot of things, somebody has to kind of like really take ownership of it, and like that's got to be their thing that they're pushing for.
Yeah.
It might be worth it sometime to just put a call or something and just kind of to have maybe that's the topic for the next community call or something. Which would be just the topic of research, just because it's become such a popular topic. So we should maybe think about doing a call or something to talk about what people would want from research and how people can get involved in producing that kind of material, and promoting the research closer, or to make it more apparent in the navigation. Even though it's kind of sparse content now, could actually make it more visible to people, and then they see that it's sparse and that there needs to be more of it. I don't know yet if that needs to be at the very top, at a top level navigation item, but at least putting it under a second level nav like resources would be much better than it is now, I think.
The chicken and egg type of deal. Yeah, I mean, it's similar with inclusion, with accessibility, with Spanish language channels or so. It takes a champion to make that stuff happen.
What would you guys think about, because in the resources, in the research area, we could propose things that maybe the community as a whole, like stuff we suggest that want to get research, like we can help people navigate. Like, for example, we could include the topic of unified QR codes in there, and say this topic hasn't had much research, and have like a stub in the guide to say this topic needs more research. Like, you're more than welcome to do it if you want, and then people can reach out to the community to get help and conduct the research if they want.
So I think I talked to Mo a lot about this, because both Mo and Millie are pretty interested in this. So we have the general type of research, like what Jamal did and what Patricia did. Well, actually, Patricia was more general. Jamal's was already specific around one specific product and community. And the Bitcoin design sprint research is super specific. Like, there's a design process happening. Part of the process is research around a very specific product. And it's fairly straightforward to do a write-up on this and conduct, you can have very specific, clickable prototypes. You can ask people, you can write it up. It's a very quick, easy deliverables compared to something like what Patricia did, 6 months of research, people around the world, interviews, all that stuff. So I would love to see this really hands-on stuff, because one of the things that I also saw with research is that with Patricia's stuff, she created a huge document and put it out there, which was awesome. But then it hasn't been used by anyone. It hasn't been implemented by anyone. Right? There's a big part about very practical research that we also need. So I would love to see some of the community stuff is where, okay, there's a specific issue, like QR code, like you're saying, we're doing research around it. Here's a document, and like within 2 weeks, it's done and it's implemented. And there's like a write-up, could be on Medium, could be somewhere else, wherever. Just very practical with clear results. I think that would be super healthy for all of the research efforts.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely make companies looking to adopt practices we recommend more likely to do so as well. Getting some good research out there.
I mean, you're the one who shared the links from Build for Mars, right? Because you love it. It's like one person went through this. I don't know how much time they spent, a week, 2 days. I don't know. Not a huge amount, right? But they created this really great write-up. It was very specific, super informative.
Yeah, I really like them. Like they're really good for, I don't know, picking up pretty glaring issues and just pointing out maybe things that aren't so obvious. But they're not like full in-depth research kind of things, but I think they're beneficial. Yeah, I like Build for Mars. I like reading all these articles. Good.
Okay, cool. But in terms of practical terms, we have rename user research to conducting research.
The named one isn't that big of a deal, but I do think that creating a resources chapter and moving the subpage to that chapter is a good move.
Yeah, I agree with that one, especially if we move the design resources there too.
Yeah. And you'd have your page there as well eventually. What was the other third one? The take-home design challenges. And I'm sure there'll be a bunch of other stuff like resource related that will come up over time.
You're changing all the voting here, huh?
Yeah, no, oh my God, I'm sorry.
I think you can lock. Oh, for me, I've locked the page. If I lock it, I lock the page for myself, but that doesn't.
No, it was locked for me as well when you locked it.
Oh, it is?
I'm trying to copy paste the freaking hand icon, and I keep screwing up everything.
Yeah. Okay, rename software to overview.
We kind of talked about that before. Like, I don't know. It's kind of a little bit indifferent about it. It's just kind of something that, at the time, I guess, made a little bit more sense as to what the product was. Because software overview, kind of like Bitcoin software overview, kind of sounds like, I don't know, like you're talking about like just Bitcoin core or like the general process of software, or like, whereas like software products is like more in line with what the page is. Like the page essentially just lists a bunch of Bitcoin products, says what they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, I kind of like, the software overview, like it's not maybe as the title isn't as informative, and like I don't know about like products, but yeah, I mean I agree with changing it. Just maybe something like, examples of Bitcoin software, examples of Bitcoin hardware, or like something just like hardware products definitely sounds a lot cleaner. But overview doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't imply to me immediately that it's like a list of examples of all the different things you might see.
Yeah, it's an overview, I guess. It could be an overview of anything, I guess. Yeah, software types, hardware types.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like software overview could imply like that it's the overview of a specific piece of software.
Yeah, or Bitcoin software itself, like the core kind of underlying software that everything kind of is built on. Like,
yeah,
it's a little thing, but it's just, I think it makes it a little easier to parse if you're kind of reading the names.
So maybe we split this in two. We're okay with renaming, but maybe not with the moving part.
Yeah, cool with that.
Okay, next one. I think that's fine. Add chapter daily spending wallet.
Yep.
Pretty obvious. Can't tell anymore who's if I already added my thumb there.
This one
Or
here,
not,
so like now we have like the onboarding parent page, and then it's broken into sections. I think you could just remove that parent page and just jump straight into first use. And in the first use, add a little bit more copy around like how it's part of onboarding, but it should be pretty obvious, I think.
Yeah, I mean, onboarding is pretty important. It could almost deserve its own section, how to think in generally, independent of a product, how to think about onboarding.
Yeah, that would make sense, yeah.
Could be in designing Bitcoin products.
If you see the updated one over on the right, I just have first use as the first page. Because currently I need to go back and read that. But, yeah.
I see the onboarding page is, yeah, it's really short.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a stub to help
Yeah.
navigate the sections with onboarding, which I don't think is super necessary.
So
Same,
maybe
same as the payments, like just remove that payments top page and then just have like requesting and sending, just kind of as their own page within daily spending wallet.
consider expanding the page into a more generally useful page about onboarding.
Would that fit within the daily spending wallet?
No, I think it would be more in designing Bitcoin products. And the reason why I'm thinking about it is that it keeps coming up all the time. Every product has a thing with onboarding, or at least everyone. And every team kind of goes through the same thing. So maybe we can gather some generally useful techniques, like the endless consideration, and the thing that comes always up, like the power user mode. The user chooses whether they're like a normal user or an advanced user, or what to include and what not to include. It seems like there are just things that just keep coming up, independent of how a daily spending wallet handles the onboarding.
Yeah, I really need to get back to that first use and funding section, because I feel like the onboarding with Lightning mobile wallets is probably the most like technical and difficult for new users kind of part of using the whole wallet. Like it's when you get your first channel open and you need to expose to all these new kind of concepts. Like it's probably the most pivotal for these kinds of wallets, I think. So I really need to return to that and maybe make things more clear. Maybe even make it more like in depth, like the educational side of things.
So the specific step here would be put the onboarding page kind of in the on live support, remove it from the navigation, and then potentially move it to designing Bitcoin products with expanded content.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
It could be one task. Okay, next one you had rename funding wallet to just funding. Makes sense.
If it's in the daily spending chapter, you know it's about funding a wallet. So I just thought it was a little minor simplification.
So renaming, that's going to make sense. Break funding into 2 pages also makes sense.
Probably combine that into one eventually, but I don't know. I'm going to come back to that. We can worry about that later. At the moment, it's just 1 page, but I was going to have it as 2, but I'm not sure. I'm going to come back because there's a lot of complexity there, and it seemed a bit cleaner having 2 pages when I was first kind of doing that page, but maybe there's a way to make it clean and together.
So I think the term was assisted that I came across. I really don't know where, but there was something like it could be supported or assisted funding and manual funding.
Yeah,
it's just like automatic cloud backup. It could be it's not automatic funding because nobody just sends you money, right? But it's kind of assisted by a third-party service. So it could be assisted funding and manual funding, automatic backup and manual backup.
Because
maybe there's a way to
like more complex like LSP kind of explanations can be offloaded onto the Lightning service pages that PR that I've got up once I get that merged in. So you can kind of reduce the size of the funding page and like reference that Lightning Services page quite a bit. So the more technical stuff, rather than explaining the technical stuff within the daily spending wallet funding section. So maybe I'd make it a bit shorter and then combine them. But I don't know. I'll get back to that. But yeah, like the assisted funding sounds good. Sounds better than with services without services.
And then you wouldn't need the funding landing page, right?
Yeah, you could probably remove that as well, and then just have manual funding and.
I think I got the term from some of the multi-sig stuff in the savings account. There was like assisted multi-sig or so, where you have two keys and then there's one key by a service provider that automatically signs low transactions for low amounts, and also helps you in case you lose one key to move the
I quite like that.
funds securely.
I think it's nicer than saying services. And there's the rename backing up to just backing up. Same rationales, funding, like.
How about just backup?
Yeah, or backup. Yeah, backups or backup.
It's nice having some kind of parity with the other. Parity is the wrong word. Symmetry with some of the other stuff. It's requesting, sending, funding, something about backing up. It's like
I also made an issue around this backing up section doesn't have any like content around backing up, like transaction history or other metadata. Now that we've got like a contacts page and stuff like that, it's probably important to include some content around that. I got an issue up for it already, but.
You know, backup, I feel like the word sometimes really doesn't do it justice because it's such an essential task.
Yeah.
You could lose access to your money. So calling it backup, a lot of people, they're like, yeah, I don't have backups of my photos or some specific file. It's like, yeah, I'll get around to it eventually. Yeah. It's not that important.
Super, yeah. Maybe we could think of a better way to explain that.
I don't know if there's a window to change the name of this, but I don't know. I just feel like it doesn't always do it justice.
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's like one of those things where, the word does not imply the importance of the topic. Even in the non-Bitcoin world, I remember, in college, in graphic design school, a teacher saying that, like, every semester in this, or every year in this program, somebody gets to senior year and loses all their, like, computer breaks and they lose all their stuff. So I'm telling you now, get a good backup system. I don't care what you do, use Dropbox, use, flash drives, hard drives, you have to have a backup. And, like, sure enough, by the end of the year, someone lost all their stuff. Happens every year. And, like, it doesn't matter. Even you have the teacher. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it just happens like clockwork every year. A student loses everything. And it's like, it doesn't matter what how many times you try to express the importance or tell the story of it. People still don't listen. So I don't know. Is there a better word that implies the importance of the topic more?
Just call it recovery phrase and then have automatic cloud backup and manual backup in there. Like, the recovery phrase is like the real important kind of concept that people need to be aware of, like what this recovery phrase is and why it's important. Something like that.
Yeah. It's a tough one. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if there's a window to even change what this thing is called. Okay. What do you want to do with this one? Leave it, do nothing, do something?
Definitely some uncertainty around what we were talking about then, but yeah.
Just
come back to it maybe.
Okay. Then requesting the next
So remove
one.
the payments parent page and just like put requesting and sending within daily spending wallet. I don't think you need the payments parent page.
Oh yeah. Yep, that makes sense. So payment request formats, the technical thing has moved to how it works. And then we have requesting. Some people will say, why is it not called receiving? But we have discussed adding a receiving page as well. which is just the act. Like the requesting is just the sharing of the payment request, I guess, letting somebody know you want to be paid in whatever way. And then receiving is when it actually enters your...
Yeah, receiving, especially with these kind of wallets, like receiving can involve like, the opening of new channels, swaps. Like there's a whole lot of like complexity on like the transmission.
Yeah, and I think the requesting page is pretty long. So splitting that out, even if it's fairly small, I think it's still... I'm looking at it right now on the website. It still warrants its own page.
And that's where we could kind of, in the receiving page, like that's where we could go into detail around maybe like the channel reserve stuff and that, because like once a user receives the money, like then that's when they should get communicated that like, a portion of these funds received are being used for like a channel reserve because new channels open. Like maybe you can kind of explore that a little bit there in that page. Seems a little bit more in context. I've got an issue up for that already, the create a receiving page.
Yeah. Okay, and then sending anything.
There's activity, which you've got now up, contacts, security and privacy pages, like which would kind of, I guess, go into like the settings, like maybe some other more like meta or not non-meta kind of stuff that you might want to explore.
Don't we have... So we have protecting a wallet.
So what I suggested there was I made an issue that like I think that protecting a wallet, like personally I think like you should set a PIN when you do set it up for the first time, and that's your first use. And I think like you should add something in the first use page about like setting up a PIN during that onboarding phase, and then remove the PIN setting stuff from the... I wrote it a bit more in detail in the issue that I can't actually remember just off the top of my head, but yeah, like the privacy page would just be more like general privacy kind of stuff that you can do with the daily spending wallet. But then you should also integrate like privacy related stuff throughout, like the first use page, like in other pages where it's relevant. But yeah, the protecting a wallet page at the moment was just like, I don't know. Let me get the issue up and make a lot more sense.
So I'm looking at protecting a wallet. I'll describe it real quick. There's an example for a security checklist. So your application can have a list of things that you should do. And for example, security checklist includes setting a PIN, using 2 of 2 multi-key, doing a key backup. Privacy says things like hiding. You could choose to hide your balance by default. You could hook up your own Bitcoin node. You can use Tor. Second one is reminders and recommendations. Like every half year, it reminds you, hey, make sure your privacy settings are the way you want. Setting up biometrics, PIN protection, a dummy wallet, which Blue Wallet has, setting up wallet limits. So I think most of this is stuff that's independent of any specific, like quickly hiding balances. The Join Market Web UI does this too now. Entering a PIN, like that's general stuff that's not specific to the daily spending wallet. So maybe that could be under designing Bitcoin products, and it's like privacy techniques, UI. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that.
A lot of this stuff is still relevant to the daily spending wallet. Like it's gone through.
Oh, it's relevant, but it's not exclusive, right?
Yeah.
So we could go either way.
Well, and one way to think about it is keep it scoped to daily spending for now, and then promote it higher level later. Because like right now, the meat of the content of the guide talks about these daily spending. Yeah, so it's like let a general purpose security page be all about that. But if we ever in the future start expanding out, like if we have a new item in this navigation underneath daily spending that's like, awesome, multi-sig family savings cold storage thing or whatever, or we get a merchant section or something like that, then it's like, okay, we take the security content out of daily spending, promote it to a higher level, and make it applicable to all those sections.
Yeah, I agree with that, because like daily spending is the meat at the moment. I think it'd be good to keep that in there, but then eventually when we have other sections, probably just have it as a general page because it applies to any kind of Bitcoin product really.
So how about we just leave it as is for now? We already have 5,000 changes in here.
Because I know there's like,
urgent.
Because of my thought process when I was doing this, like the security and privacy, like they're kind of a little bit different. And I think you go a little bit more in depth on the privacy side of things. We haven't actually covered any privacy stuff in this chapter. Like, for example, connecting over Tor. I don't think there's any mention of connecting over Tor in the whole daily spending wallet. But that is quite important, especially if you're using an LSP. Like it becomes something that's like not just a secondary thing that privacy advocates should do. Realistically, if you're using LSP, you should be connecting over Tor. Otherwise, they have the potential to censor your transactions, and it makes it a lot harder for them to do that. So it like limits the amount of trust you have to put in the LSP. So like, and with all this extra detail, this page is already pretty long, and I think that's why I have a security and a privacy page. So you have like two kind of pages that, so that like one, so instead of having one page like called protecting a wallet, it goes into all that detail around privacy and security, which would get very long. You have a privacy and security, which focuses on those two topics like independently. But
you'd agree. I think they're different topics.
Yeah, they're definitely different. I don't know if it's because we've been talking for an hour 40 an hour or so, but I have because this is far in the future. For me, relatively far in the future. In a way that there are probably 50 changes we make before this. And when we make those 50 changes, maybe some other things will change our minds again because of some other copy gets changed and whatnot. So I'm having a hard time clearly saying like something else like rename page. Okay, that's very obvious. It's easy to, but this one is a bit harder because it's a bigger chunk and it requires a lot of other things to happen. So I have a hard time saying this is awesome or I don't like this. Generally, it sounds very good, but it's kind of hard to.
Yeah, we'll come back to that, I think. But yeah, definitely would be good to have some content around more privacy stuff like connecting over Tor and stuff like that.
Yeah, which could be a fairly general thing. Could also be how it could. Some of it, like Tor, could also be in the how it works section that say, okay, the general idea is making sure the traffic is secure or private.
Yeah.
And in the UI, it could really might just be one checkbox, or it just does it automatically and you don't even realize it.
Yeah, it would be good. But I reckon we come back to that. I need to think about it a little bit more. Yeah. There's also like stuff around like, like would you want to use like if you're like a product developer, why would you choose Neutrino over like Electrum server? And like these things might seem like things that the product developers just kind of make, but I personally think they're things that users should have the option to change and play around with and configure, and particularly when you're using LSPs. Like I think if you're going to use an LSP, you should definitely like have a lot of privacy and security focused things in your application to limit the trust you have to have with them. For example, like using Neutrino and being able to like change your Neutrino server as well. Like it's complicated, but like it's something that should be an option, at least. You could mention that there and stuff like that as well. It's all, it's a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand all the trade-offs between that and the complexities of actually implementing these things.
Also, like hidden accounts and stuff like that, and like I don't know, it's heaps of plausible deniability. I think there's something in here about that actually.
Yeah, with like fake accounts. With you have a pin and it just says you have almost no money.
Or like brick me pins as well. We don't have anything there. I think like we just introduced that into Zeus. So like it just like removes, like deletes the wallet pretty much when you type that pin in, or logs you out and removes it from your phone. So you have to like set up the wallet again with your recovery phrase. Like it's like a duress kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, it's in the, I think it's like BN Zeus next week. That'd be cool.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. So, okay, that's something on the horizon, but a little bit hard to get specific because it seems like it also includes many subtasks. Then reference design, brings it all together. I think we kind of have that page. It would be just making sure it works within that bigger reorg. Merchants chapter, that
just
is
with the
not
reference
up
design, it would be
to
good
us.
to use the same like images that are throughout this chapter, just so like it's like consistent.
Yep.
Because I know the case study, daily spending case study at the moment, looks quite different, like interface wise, compared to what images are used in the daily spending wallet. It'd just be good to have those consistent, so it look the same.
Yeah, I think that's a task for me with syncing, taking everything from this chapter into the UI kit, then making sure it's all consistent, and then any changes that are needed for consistency, like making sure that things are labeled the right way and whatnot, putting that back into the guide. That's one of my tasks that I've been not getting to, but I need to.
I don't think there's much else past this. I know the merchant section. I don't know. Is there any updates from Patricia on that? Like a merchant section? Like that
Not
would be
sure.
a different reference design kind of section that I'm sure could get pretty complex. But
yeah, I could see two things. If she does a lot of external research, it could go into case studies, like analysis of how BTC Pay does invoices or whatever.
yeah,
or it could be its own merchant section if they're more general, if they're more reference designs. Like, okay, here's how BTC Pay does it, which is like real life study. And here's kind of a reference design for anybody else who wants to implement invoices or whatever it might be. Okay,
that's
then how it
works.
works.
Yeah, I think we talked about that earlier. I think that's pretty.
Do you need private key management overview? Isn't that the private key management page itself, the overview?
Yeah, you could delete that and have the overview there as a main page.
The Bitcoin backups could also go somewhere else, right? That is kind of
I reckon Bitcoin backups could be moved like to be a main page within this, how it works. And there's obviously like these other pages that are just kind of chucked in there, like the bips, blips, and bolts. I think I actually have a Figma somewhere with most of the BIP stuff listed out, and it just kind of explains them in like each BIP relevant. Like I only focus on the application layer BIPs and just how they're relevant to designers. Like wrote a quick paragraph, put it in the context of design, and then linked off to the BIPs websites for more in depth if they want to look further. But should be important that how it works should be explanations in the context of design. I think that's like not just explaining the technical details. There should obviously have some design context for because that's obviously our redesign.
And then just tracking one more thing. Find backups post directly underneath how it works. So we don't have Lightning liquidity right now. That's Stephen, is that something you wanted to work on? I think I asked you about this in Slack too.
Yeah, I just I assigned myself to the issue this morning.
Okay, awesome. So we're gonna have that page. Then we have transactions overview. Units and symbol goes somewhere else. Payment request formats. I wonder if some of the glossary subpages could also move up, like the node page or coin selection.
Yeah, I reckon they could be in how it works, and just have glossary as not collapsible, so it's just like a main page, and move node and stuff. What else is in there? There's address, wallet, node, coin selection. Oh yeah.
And glossary is like definitions of things. Node, the node page is more complex, especially if we add Lightning. And if we add Lightning nodes in there too, then it is kind of a how it works thing. And coin selection is very much a how it works page.
Yeah, wallet and address could probably stay there. Yep, I'm cool with that. We got a lot of stuff laid out here. I
think we're going to totally wreck our SEO with moving all these pages worth.
Yeah, have to make sure that a lot of link checking, make sure things are broken. should definitely start with like the smallest shuffles first. Do it in small PRs and move things slowly.
Yeah, we can add some 301 redirects and all that if we need to.
Yeah, we have to. It's already, the functionality is there in the markdown files. We just have to make sure we do it properly. Okay, so there are a few more things to vote on. Add a resources chapter. Add design, take home. Is there anything else in the future that we could see go under resources?
Don't know, like maybe I don't know. Let's go have a look at human interface guidelines, see what kind of stuff they put in there. Because they have a resources page as well.
So I agree with moving the design resources. I don't agree with the renaming. Because community resources could be anything. Like community resources could, I don't know, like how to organize a community, how to contribute to the community.
Same, I agree.
Okay. Okay, we're nearing the 2 hours here. How do you feel?
Yeah, I'm pretty keen to go get some food. Actually, brain's a bit flat right now.
This has been productive.
Yeah, I think so too. Now we can create 500 issues out of this one. That seems like. How about first, before turning this into issues, how about first copy pasting stuff into a Google Doc with individual bullet points, and then only once we're happy with that, we actually turn it into issues, because it's, I mean, if you look at this, there are like 50 things here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that.
And I think we may also decide that if there are 10 tasks in here that are all about moving a page and renaming it in the navigation, we might just bundle that into one thing instead of 10 individual issues, if we all agree.
Yeah, that seems right.
Okay, then
Pav's in the call and he just made a comment in the chat. I'm just reading it. Yeah, we talked about that at the start, Pav. Like if you go to that FigJam we linked, that's like all the documentation, tree structure stuff over the right, and then if you go to the left, we have like some stuff we talked about, creating like a more overview visual way to kind of navigate through the guide. But I think it'd be better to get all the tree structure stuff laid out first, and then we'll go do the overview page and like that kind of main layout after that, because it'd be a bit of shuffling around.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I was just curious. Sorry, so very late the link to the call. It seemed this was very productive, so just wanted to, great work. We'll catch up with
a whole lot of issues to make.
Yeah, that was the first thing we got into, was this bigger picture stuff. We also talked about the search, and then and how on some screens it does not very much content on the page in the first place. On the screen.
Put some stuff around.
And then at the end, we got into this super nitty-gritty stuff.
Yeah, I missed the Figma link. Okay, I will catch up. Thanks.
Okay. Something we didn't discuss were the section landing pages, if we could make them more useful somehow. Better starting points. But I'm not sure we need to do.
We could do a similar kind of thing to the overview page or the introduction page you have there, like something a little bit like a more simplified version of that, but make it a bit more like visual, and like maybe have some images to highlight certain sections rather than just having it like listed like it is currently.
Yeah, this list is definitely very long.
And we could just use
easy to read, but it's also
it
could be a bit tighter.
Yeah, it would be nice and then visual.
Yeah. Well, I think the visual part is where you'd have to look individually at each section and figure out what is this section for, and what is the best way to provide an overview of or a how-to of this section. So that right now, I think the sections kind of describe what it's for, but it could also be kind of a how to use this section. It could also, because like you said earlier, this is basically a replica of the tree structure with another extra line or two of text. But it could also, just like you said about the intro page, the landing page, it could provide a different perspective on that section.
Yeah. It would also be nice maybe to have like search boxes on the landing pages. So like if you want to maybe like say you're looking at daily spending wallet and you only want to look up a certain term within that chapter. I don't know, maybe that's not that good, but it just might help refine the searches and not search the entire guide, because there's a crap load of pages that it could pass and give the user like 20 results, rather they go into daily spending, search QR codes. If they want to just look up QR codes within daily spending, it only shows results within that context or within that page, just to make it a bit more simple. But I don't know, this is an idea.
The other thing I wanted to ask was, so I put in a thing here that says add videos from learning Bitcoin and design sessions to relevant pages. Like the tech primer session was really good. So if somebody wants to just watch that. I was wondering, are there other materials we could put in?
Yeah, well, Connor's videos would be great to use, I reckon. Like they're really professional, and a lot of them would there's a lot of getting started, kind of like introductory Bitcoin stuff. Like we could definitely use a lot of his videos throughout there to add additional info, context and stuff.
I mean, I also, I think for both the activity and contacts pages, when they went live, I created these 5-minute summaries that I shared on Slack that are still in my YouTube account. It could also be helpful to create some of these. Like a video.
Yeah, I like videos too. It helps me understand things a bit more.
And then let's say I go to some content page. Let's say this is an activity page. There could be in the top right corner, there could be a thing, watch a 5-minute video about this.
Yeah.
Like reading. Like here's an alternate format on this page. They would get outdated at some point, right? But,
yeah, I think we should do that at some point, but maybe, put that a bit as a in the future kind of thing. So a good idea.
Inline clickable prototypes would require custom scripts. I don't know. And I think, yeah, we could do another whole thing on content pages and section landing pages, a whole other section. But yeah, I don't know, anything else missing? So I think we can share this video. Then I'll try to turn this into a Google Doc where each bullet would become one issue as a proposal. Then we can refine that. And then somebody in the chat asked, like, hey, I'm a new user. I recently joined the space. I heard you say you want to talk to people who haven't used the guide, and I fall into that category. So please let me know then what the next step should be. How about we set up a session just for people to show up and tell us how they use the guide?
Yeah, we can do that.
And we can use that.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, cool. So after the call, I'll take a break now. After 2 hours, I'll try to summarize this, share the Google Doc with you guys. You can also chip in, then we'll share it with the community, and we'll set up this other call to get more feedback. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Good.
Awesome.
Well, ping me on Slack. I'm gonna head off and go make some food and stuff, and a bit of a break from the computer. This is all good, but
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for hanging out and working through all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, 1 or 2 pages is good. I'm glad that I
Yeah.
think we made a lot of progress here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Same.
All right.
Okay, cool. Steven, are you going to go to bed finally?
No, man. It's morning. It's time
Late
to
now.
produce some stuff.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. Good luck
All right.
with that.
I'll catch you guys a bit later.
Talk to you
All
online
right,
then.
later.